you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you are doing it to. I'm Bushka on Blitz. This is for all of you humans, hippies, and earthlings out there that like the Centurion 7 Mark 1 or are heading up the British line. I have done a review on this tank, but it was done quite some time ago, way back when the channel was just kicking off, and I really didn't love it because I was a bit of a brawlaholic back then, and if it wasn't really fast with really good armor and really high DPM, I thought it was a bad tank, and I was a bad driver, and wrong. And this is why. This tank is a sublime performer, and I've found it absolutely hammering people now that I've started playing it again. Snake Eyes, Chappos, all the boys kept telling me that I was dead set wrong about this tank, and I needed to pull my finger out and give it another chance at the title, and I did, and of course they were correct, which is why you should always listen to your mates. It's not fast. It has reasonably low DPM, only 5.67 rounds per minute and 350 alpha. It lacks heat penetration numbers, and all that is negative. What it has, however, is an amazingly large amount of penetration. The only tank that's got the same pen as this in the medium field is a Leopard PT8. It has 268mm of pen on its tier 10 gun as well. And the L7A1 is the gun I'm talking about here, the top tier gun you can get, not the 15 round per minute gun which I was running it with previously, which is fine. You can still succeed with that gun. But this is the gun I'm talking about with 268mm of penetration, 350 average damage on its APCR rounds, and 450 average damage on its Hesh gold ammunition, which is really important because you have 210mm of penetration on the Hesh, and I have become a Heshaholic. My name's Bushka, and it's been about 15 minutes since I last fired some Hesh. I'm really struggling to stay away from the Hesh. It's just a wonderfully fun tank to play because the gun is so good and it's such a solid platform, and it's got a strong turret. So you basically want to, you can see all the hills that I'm on here, how I keep going to hills and abusing little bits of terrain, and you want to be doing that with this tank. It's a hill fighter. You can fire down at all the Russian tanks, and they simply can't do the same because they don't have the same kind of gun depression you have. You've got a lot of gun depression, and you have outstanding gun handling characteristics. 0.32 dispersion, very, very good aim time. Very, very good, gun depression, very good penetration, and big alpha damage on your Hesh. And Hesh is where it's at for me because you will actually find a lot of tanks you can pen with high explosive squash head ammunition, which is what it's called. If you get good at identifying those tanks and the parts and the panels of those tanks you can penetrate and switching ammunition types, you'll be able to maximize your DPM at an extreme rate, and you'll be able to do really, really big peekaboo alpha for a medium tank. I've hit tanks for 500 damage in this, and that's a medium tank to a heavy tank, and that is not something any heavy tank is expecting. The problem you're going to have is tanks like the T-54 that want to get up close and brawl and take advantage of their big DPM advantage, because you won't be able to Hesh a lot of those tanks and exploit your DPM advantage that you have when you hit weak spots like you can at range. So what you want to be doing is always trading off distance for damage. Now you can see this T-54 here, he's moving up on me. I know where he is, so I'm simply using the really good penetration numbers and the outstanding accuracy of the gun, and I'm trading damage for distance. So every time he has to close, he's getting hit. He's going to drop adrenaline, and that's all well and good. He can certainly out DPM me, but I've done enough damage to him now to the point where he's not going to miss shots really, because I've got such a weak chassis, and the armor profile on this is really weak, but your turret is exceptionally strong. So if you can wiggle a bit and get the occasional bounce, you'll do really, really well, as long as you make them pay on the way in. And that's something that goes for this tank and just about every tank in the game, is map awareness. Now we're going to have a look at some gameplay now. This is more about people who've already got this tank and are looking at ways to utilize it, or are struggling a little bit with it, and I want to improve them. And you'll see you want to hit a lot of sniper style shots and conserve your hit points as the match goes on, if at all possible. You want to get very good at swapping ammunition types out, because Hesh is a really, really big strong point for your tank. And you're going to see a couple of shots here and a couple of instances where I basically just bash people and accidentally press the fire button with high explosive squash head. Namely, there's a Tiger 2 here, and German tanks the size of E75s and the like. You can see that guy 373. That's a low roll for Hesh in the side of the IS-6. And I've dropped adrenaline here because I really want to kill that T-62A. Hesh won't do it to a track. It's high explosive rounds. You cannot put high explosive rounds into spaced armor. And you can see we must have set him on fire there. A bit of a delayed smash, but you can't put high explosive rounds into spaced armor. Now you can hit ISU 152s as often as you like. You'll see here we roll for 502. That's the value of having a big, like, Pika booming for 500 with a medium tank. It's made that guy a one shot for everyone on the field, just using high explosive again. That Tiger 2 there, we are without adrenaline and such, but he's going to turn his tank, and you'll see the size of the hits, 475 on that one. You want to be utilizing this armor. If you're not ammunition, if you're not utilizing Hesh, you are absolutely selling the tank short. So we've gone 502, 475, 460, and then we switch back to AP because there's no reason to waste money, and we use APCR to finish the job. So you can do big burst damage when you need to do big burst damage, and it's one of the reasons I still love the FV4202, and I will be doing an advanced guide on the FV4202. Now look how good this gun is. Just absolutely rips it in there when needed. Your turret's very strong too. And the mobility, while it's not super quick like a T54, is still strong enough that you can get around the field a lot faster than most heavies. And if you think about things and you're a bit clever, like we've been here, you'll be able to get the drop on most of those heavies and actually still put yourself in a position where you pincer them between yourself and, say, the rest of your team up the top there. You will get bounces on occasion, but your APCR with 268 penetration is more than enough to penetrate tier 10 tanks even at range and distance. Oh, I can't tell you how excited I was to start playing this tank again and see how well it does. It's a stately tank. It is not the kind of tank, and again, Hesh over 400, you can finish him off in one shot as long as you know that you're hitting flat panels. Watch out for spaced armor. You've really got to watch out for spaced armor. If you don't watch out for spaced armor, you'll be doing 10 and 12 damage rolls, which are terrible. There you go, 4K, pretty handy. You're not going to make a lot of money firing premium Hesh, but you can also fire cheap Hesh, which has excellent penetration values for a high explosive round. And I don't do that often enough because I'm a little bit lazy and I'd rather fire the Pramo Hesh. Now it's 210 penetration. I'd love to see the game go that way, where premium ammunition is more about a higher damage roll than a better penetration roll. But for all that, I do like the fact that it makes some of these British tanks very unique in their high explosive ammunition quality. It makes them a more interesting gameplay vehicle for me. Like the IS-3 Defender is an autoloader, and that's interesting for me. When you've played a lot of games, it becomes really apparent that you warm to tanks that have a little bit of character. And the 7 Mark 1 has character in spades. Now you've probably seen this. This is my office. This is where I like to operate on this map. I've had so many good games over here, and it's just such a fantastic position. If you haven't used it before, you should. Now it's especially good for tanks like the Indian or the Centurion 7 Mark 1 or the Leopard or any of those kind of tanks that have really good, really accurate guns. And you can see just how accurate this gun is in a wee while. You're also going to see why Hesh can be a bit of a double-edged sword. We're going for the absolute king shot here, and we don't get it, but we still roll 151 damage on the top turret of the E75. We've lost a couple of quick ones. We've got a very, very limited field of view, and we're just letting camo reset before we move back again and look to put shots in. Now, normally I'd be shooting E75s here with APCR, and we get a good roll there, but the reason I'm trying to use Hesh is because he's behind that rock, and I'd rather do some damage than no damage at all. And we're like shooting past a drain pipe. It's a tiny little window. Obviously, that IS-6 has been far too aggressive. 337 in the tail. So 350 Alpha is the same as your E50 or your Leopard PT or any of those guys. But the Hesh factor makes it a much more interesting kettle of fish. And the gun depression allows you to take shots from positions like this without relocating. Now, things are looking grim here. The rest of the team doesn't seem too inclined to play that aggressively. There's someone up behind me. So that's a Yag Panther. I'm going to have to move forward and basically use the buildings as cover from him. And this is why I like to call it my office, because I'm very, very used to playing in this environment. And when it gets a bit rough and nasty, this tank, or any tank really up here, can excel. Now that was a flat-sided German tank. I should have been shooting premium ammunition, but I just wanted to get one of the shots in. But we do reload to Pramo in just a sec. You'll see as he comes around. 210mm of pen will slab the side of that VK. Happy days. A 4502A is a very easy pen. E75 you'll pen from the side quite comfortably as well. 210mm of penetration is enough to go through the sides of just about any tank, but you've got to watch out on IS-3s, IS-3 Defenders, IS-7s, IS-8s, because those are tanks that have spaced sides. Their armour is spaced and it will eat. Same with E100s, Mouses, little certain sections of the Object 704. These are all things that you need to be watching out for here. Now, if he's got a damaged ammo rack, you'll note that's a really bad idea to come out sideways when you're in a T54 with a damaged ammo rack, and we completely ammo rack him from that one. Anytime you're in a T54, any tank with a damaged ammo rack, but especially Russian mediums where your primary pen area is going to be exactly where you get hit, you want to be very, very careful. Now, there's an ISU 152 and this IS-3 Defender. He seems to know what he's about. He's pushing me very hard, not giving me the space I need. I'm really worried about this ISU 152. Now, the Cent 7 Mark 1 is a very weak tank in terms of its armor profile outside of its turret. It has fairly hefty tracks, so you can side scrape a bit with it, but there is plenty of areas above and beside the track where you will get penned if you give even the slightest indication. And you can see there we've taken a shot. I'm pretty certain he's on one of the big hills at the moment behind us, but I don't have a lot of scope. I'm kind of stuck in a bad place waiting for Tankenstein to turn up. And it's pretty funny, this last bit here is an IS-3 Defender, which is obviously a tank you could do a marathon for, and Tankenstein, which is exactly the same deal, a tank that you got via a marathon. And he's taken a hit from that ISU 152, so I'm now certain that he is on the hilltop behind us, which is going to lead a little bit to what I do tactically here. Now, as soon as I see that the Defender is pumping for Tankenstein, Tankenstein does a good job here. He does actually fill up the right spots in the map for me. We push up. We're trying to get there quickly so the ISU 152, who might be readjusting, doesn't have a chance to put damage into us, and then we're out from behind the buildings and away. Now, the 7 Mark 1 does not have outstanding mobility, and it's certainly not agile. It's a big tank. It's much bigger than your standard medium. But you can see in all the gameplay, if you play it in a really solid, stately fashion, find hull down areas, look for hills, ridges, inclines, anything like that, and particularly if you've got good heavy tanks that roll forward, you will be able to get great shots and convert a really high percentage. And that's the key. My DPM in this tank since I picked it back up is up in the very high 2000s because it converts so many of its shots. Its dispersion coupled with its penetration values and the Hesh factor, as you can see here, mean that you are able to absolutely put more damage in per shot than you would in, say, a Type 61 or a T54. You're hitting a tank, you're generally going to pen it. And when you do pen the right kind of tanks with Hesh, you're doing bigger numbers. Now, we used that Tankenstein pretty ruthlessly there. We asked him to cap the base, but we did that for a reason because I was certain it would expose that ISU 152, and I was pretty confident he'd be moving towards me here. And look at that gun, just doing the business. So we've had 2 shots and we've taken off nearly 1,000 hit points and damage off him, and that's from a medium tank. There are an awful lot of tanks you can do this to, and as you play the tank more and get to know the armor values of opposite tanks and get to know their rate of fire, you've got 5.67. That's going to equate roughly out to a shot every 10 seconds with your rammer and such. If you know a tank opposite you has a 12-second or a 15-second reload, then you're totally able to take advantage of that. Move out, and you've got the kind of gun that can let you hit those weak spots. So that's the Cent 7 Mark 1. It certainly is an outstanding machine. You saw there 17 shots fired, 16 shots hit. And because of the penetration values, when you hit, you are generally doing damage. And because you're using Hesh, even if they turn at the last minute, you're still going to do some kind of damage to the enemy tank. And that's a valuable thing too, because a lot of times when you put damage into a person, if they're inexperienced or they're a little bit worried about their position, even high explosive damage that does to 100 or 200 damage will back them off from a position and give you an advantage. And the Cent 7 Mark 1 excels at that. It can hit targets at distance very, very easily and very, very effectively. So there you go. That's the advanced primer for the 7 Mark 1. I was wrong about it first time out. Use the L7A1. It is the best gun you can use in this situation, and get good at actually switching your ammunition types and getting to know which tanks you can pen at 210 millimeters of penetration. That was a Patreon-sponsored post. If you haven't looked at Patreon, please do. There'll be a link up at the start and the finish of this video. But for as little as $1 a month, you can help contribute to the channel. And the more sponsorship the channel gets, it is that much easier for me to get time on the computer streaming and such, and talking to the channel with my better half. She's a lot more apt to let the things happen when things are happening, if you know what I mean. You're all wonderful. I really appreciate the support. We're moving onwards and upwards towards 9,000 subscribers, which is staggering for me. I'm blown away by the level of support, chatter, and just general well-wishing I get. I don't answer all the chat messages. It's not being rude. I just don't simply have the physical, logistical means of getting around to answering absolutely everyone, but we're doing our best. And I'd like to think that we're building a very good resource for the future for World of Tank Blitz. Anyway, humans, stay safe on the Z battlefield, and onwards and